Hello, welcome to Cengage in the Professional Exam Review for the Level 1 CFA exam. My name is John Howe, and I'm going to be leading you through some economics today. Economics constitutes 10% of the exam, and therefore we could expect about 24 questions plus or minus on exam day. However, economics consists of 3 study sessions, and so there's a lot of material that goes into making up this 10%. And as a consequence, we will have 5 sessions on economics to fill you in. Before we get really started, I'd like to make a kind of help you organize your thinking about economics. Broadly speaking, we can divide economics into 2 categories. There's microeconomics and macroeconomics. And microeconomics is kind of a more, sometimes called the worm's eye view of the economy. It has to do with the individual actors within the economy. In particular, we look at consumers and we look at firms, which is a phrase we often use, a word we often use for companies. Macroeconomics deals with very much aggregated economic activity, and it too has kind of 2 categories underneath it. One is fiscal policy, which is basically tax and spending policy, and the other is monetary policy, which, as the name suggests, has to do with the money supply and other such things. While there are a few things that fall between the cracks there, mostly you can organize most of this material under these kind of 2, micro, macro, and then 2 under each of them. And I think that's a useful way for thinking about this. This first session is entitled Basics of Microeconomics, and we're going to be following the curriculum very closely. And we're going to essentially start with microeconomics. We're going to start with consumers and move on to firms here in this first session. Throughout, we're going to we have just simply chosen what we believe to be key LOSs, learning outcome statements. You may recall that these drive what you need to know from the readings, and so we focus on the key LOSs and develop them in some detail. So let's get started with session 1. This first LOS in front of us asks us to calculate and interpret elasticities of demand. And I'm going to focus on really just the first part of this LOS, the calculate and interpret part. As you probably know by now, there are key words in LOSs, and the 2 here are calculate and interpret. There are a variety of elasticities that we need to be able to both calculate and interpret. So let's just take, first of all, a list. Let's take a look at a list of those elasticities for which we are going to be responsible. There are 3 elasticities of demand. The first one is the price elasticity. Let me define all of these by saying that the word elasticity really means sensitivity. So when we talk about price sensitivity, we're really talking about how does demand change when price changes. More precisely, how does the quantity demanded change when price changes? So keep in mind, I think it's useful to think of sensitivity to something as a synonym for elasticity. The second type of elasticity of demand that we're interested in is called the cross-elasticity of demand. And it has to do with the fact that how does the demand for a product change if the price of a substitute or a complement changes. So for example, if we always eat chocolate on our ice cream, what happens to the demand for ice cream if the price of chocolate changes? That would be an example of a cross-elasticity of demand.